black thing go from left to right, and I thought, I'm going to die out here. No one's ever going to know.
I couldn't believe what my eyeballs were showing me. I'll never forget how evil the eyes were. It was horrible. I mean, I've never seen nothing that evil.
It ran towards me at a rate that I can't even explain. Turned and stared at me, and this look of, I just want to kill you. I want to say it was human, but it wasn't.
He was yelling at me to grab a gun, grab a gun. I was like, for what? He said, just grab a gun. And there's footprints all the way to the door of my house. It had went inside my garage, all the way to the door.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
See ya!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
You're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. Check us out online at sasquatchchronicles.com. If you've had an encounter, email me. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Starting to get my voice back. I know I lost it last week. It still kind of comes in and out, but try and keep some fluids down, keep my voice going tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Got a great show planned for you tonight. Going to be talking to Roman, who is from British Columbia, up there in Vancouver, and he had a very odd night. He got turned around. He ended up seeing one of these creatures, a very tall, hairy, gray creature, kind of stepped behind a tree, and he got turned around. Had a lot of strange things happen, odd smells, feelings of being watched. He even came across this farmhouse that had a light above it, very odd ball of light. So he'll be talking about that tonight. Also be welcoming Jared to the show. Jared is, I know Jared's nervous, didn't really want to come on, but I asked him to come on. He had a very, very, very scary night when he was out with his cousin. One of these creatures had come into the camp, actually took his canoe and threw it up in a tree and took all their food, and very, very odd night. But we'll start with Mike. And Mike had an encounter back in the 70s. He was 11, 12 years old and saw one of these creatures on the side of the road, and he had actually drew a picture of what he had seen. So I'm going to post that up on Sasquatch Chronicles. I'll get Mike's permission first. But if you get a chance, go to sasquatchchronicles.com and check out this drawing that he did. Very, very fascinating stuff. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member, get additional shows. I know I talked to Bo on Friday night, and he had actually hit one of these creatures. If you get a chance, check it out on sasquatchchronicles.com. Again, I'm not on YouTube. I know I get a lot of questions about YouTube, so if you're listening to it on YouTube, it's not me posting it. And if you're interacting with someone on there that says they're Wes Germer or Sasquatch Chronicles, it's not me. So I wanted to give that heads up. I had a lady contact me and got real nasty with me about something I said on a YouTube channel, and I was like, well, that wasn't me. And normally I don't do a lot of shout-outs, but I want to give a shout-out to Jamie. I got an email from his fiancée, Tara. She said, Wes, my fiancée and I are huge fans of your show. We listen to the episodes together every night when we go to bed. Many we have listened to over and over again. My fiancé's birthday is coming up, and it's actually March 26th, so tomorrow. I was wondering if at any time during this week you could possibly wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jamie. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Tara. Tara goes on to say, it would be such a wonderful surprise for him if he heard you tell him happy birthday. I know this may sound like an unusual request, but we are true fans. I want so badly to give him this surprise gift. If there's any way at all that you'd be making two people very, very happy. His name is Jamie. Keep up the good work, and thank you for an amazing show. Well, thank you, Tara, for listening, and thank you, Jamie. Jamie, happy birthday. Thank you guys so much for listening. Very cool. Well, let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Mike to the show. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
And right before we went on the air, I was looking at your picture here. Is it okay if I post that up on the website?
Yeah, sure.
It's a really, really cool drawing. If you would, tell us, kind of walk us into your encounter. When did this happen? What were you doing? And what did you see?
Sure. This is going back to like 1974, 75. I was about 11, 12. My parents had property up in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I'm living in Florida now. My mother wanted to go check on the property. There was nothing on it. It was just land. So, occasionally we would just do like day trips, just to get out and instead of going stir crazy. So, drove up there, and this was like the fall, around like October. I would say probably like late October. So driving up there, checked out the property, just sort of made the day of it. And driving back, some of the roads, of course, they're foothills, mountains, and the roads twist and turn. And so it was a beautiful day. It was clear, blue sky. The trees were turning, so it was, dappled and beautiful colors. So at one point on this road, I think it might have been Bushkill Road. It curves, and as the road curves, it kind of goes down part of this mountain. And I was in the passenger side of the station wagon. My mother was driving. And as we were coming up to this curb, I saw, like, out of the corner of my eye, this white thing. At first, I thought it was a stuffed animal, like someone had tossed out this toy, almost gorilla, because it had its back towards the side of the road. And it was probably about, I would say about maybe 10 feet in from the side of the road, maybe 9 feet in.
Yeah.
Where I could see it because it was sitting in like the small saplings along the side of the road. And as the car approached and as we came up on it, I saw, when I looked out my window, this thing, again, I thought, who would toss out this little stuffed animal? And I'm saying little, it was probably about like maybe about like 2 feet tall. And as we were passing it, it turned. It actually turned its body and then turned its head, and it looked at the wheels as the wheels were rolling by. And I had no idea what this thing was. At first, I'm like, again, rolling through my mind what type of animals that this would, I would associate this with. It wasn't a possum. It wasn't a small bear. And it wasn't a beaver. And again, it was white. It was all white. Its face was like this reddish, pinkish color. And its eyes were just auburn. It was really, I drew a picture of it. I sent you the picture. But it was just, its eyes followed the tires, followed the wheels as we passed. So, like I said, it just, I had no idea what this thing was. I just was freaking out. I just kind of kept looking at it as we were, passing. And as we went down the hill, I couldn't see it. And this probably took place in like maybe all of, I don't know, maybe like 5-10 seconds. And, it just left this impression in my mind. And I turned to my mother and I'm like, did you see that? And she was like, see what? She had no idea, what I was talking about. And again, I wasn't sure what I saw, but I never said anything. I'd never explained what it was. I didn't go into detail. It's like, I didn't say like, turn around. But again, it was just something that I had no idea what it was. And years go by. And, as I get older, I'm YouTubing and, someone had posted a video about a white Sasquatch in the Pocono Mountains. So then, like, this flashback of, like, when I'm, like, again, 11 years old, of this incident of passing this little thing on the side of the road. And I'm like, that's probably what it was. That's probably, I'm sure, what it was. Again, trying to understand what this thing was. And again, thinking that it was just this stuffed animal that someone tossed on the side of the road until it moved, until it turned its head and moved its body. I was like, I just was,
just in shock. Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea, no clue what it was. And, at that time, I didn't know anything about Sasquatch or what it was, or, this creature that's lurking in the woods, and never occurred to me. It never occurred to me until I got older. And, it's one of those things where it kind of, like I said, it's just etched in my mind. And I held on to it for years. And like I said before, I recently told my family, probably, again, maybe about 8 years ago. And of course they were just, oh, sure. Yeah, right. You were probably sleeping, or you were dreaming. And I'm like, no, I don't sleep in a car. I don't, it's just something that I don't do. It's people are like, oh, I fall asleep when someone's driving, but I don't. I've never done that. And, I had to draw it because it was something, again, it's been in the back of my mind and trying to sort it out. And, I think that's when, when you start YouTubing, Sasquatch and videos, and you see a lot of crap that people post, because I think it's a joke. And I guess they can joke about it because people who haven't encountered it will joke about it, or even those that have. I think they try to rationalize it, something that's, that isn't supposed to be, but I'm sure it is. So I think a lot of people get intimidated by that, but I'm at the age where I don't care. I don't care what people think.
Yeah, I hear you.
I know what I saw, and, I hope, I don't know. I think other people should have such an experience, and I think they would really understand that there's other stuff that's out there that we don't know about yet. So,
yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. It's interesting. I talked to a guy, you and I talked about this yesterday, but here in Washington State, he had seen what he thought was a toy gorilla sitting on the side of the road. And I said, well, he goes, it was a cute little, looked like a little monkey, little gorilla. And he goes, it was only about 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. It wasn't that big. And it was just kind of propped up until it moved its head as he passed by. And it kind of hit me. I was like, wow, that's really, because it really correlates with your encounter. It's kind of the same thing. Makes you wonder where mom and dad's at. They're close.
Right.
And you get a lot of reports of them watching cars, even adults. You get a lot of reports of them kind of off the side of the highway watching cars go by. It's very interesting.
Well, right. I'm sure they're just as curious as we are about them. But, of course, people can get a little crazy, and I'm sure that's why they kind of hide or keep their distance. But, yeah, I didn't know that when you told me about that encounter, about someone seeing another infant or a young Sasquatch, I've never heard anybody else mention that. I thought I was, seeing things, or maybe I just, but again, it's something that I'll never forget. It's just, like I said, I can't, I drew it as best I could, but it's there in my mind, and I don't care what anybody says. It's, unless you experience it, you're kind of changed, but it's, it was cool. I mean, just to understand, what I saw, and, a lot of Native American people talk about, it's an honor to see them. And I believe that. I believe that, it's something that few people have seen, whether it's an adult or a small or teenager, whatever you call them. But it's, I felt really fortunate.
Yeah, and it would have stuck out like a sore thumb too, because it was white. Looking at the picture you drew, that would have
Right.
stuck out like a sore thumb just sitting there
Right.
watching.
Right, because again, what left that impression was that fur. It was white fur, and I thought, again, it did stick out. I'm thinking, who tossed out this stuffed animal? Like someone got it from a fair and just like throw it out there. But its back again was like towards the road. But as the car passed, it moved. It turned its body. It looked at the wheels, watched it go by. I was like, oh my God, what is this thing? But again, I think as a kid, you're just, trying to make sense of it. And, rather than go into detail, with my mother, it would have just been like, it would have been a whole nother,
Yeah.
scenario.
No, I understand. And too, 1975, I mean, there really wasn't a ton of information about these things until the internet came along, you know what I mean? And so I would imagine for many years you were probably dumbfounded on what it was, whether it was a monkey or...
Right. And, the Patterson-Gimlin film, it's like you hear about, okay, well, it's Patty and it's a big brown thing. And, it's like, yeah, you hear about it, but, as a kid, I guess you're looking for this big brown thing or, whatever. But seeing this, it was just, there's a white thing. Like, okay, well, then as years go by, you hear like, oh, well, there are different colors. They're, reddish brown, or there's white. And I'm like, white? I'm like, really? So that just set it off for me. That just this ball rolling. And, I haven't seen anything else. I haven't seen anything as time has gone on. But, it's again one of those secrets that you kind of keep because, if I share it, I'm going to be, sounding like a nut or I'm a loon or, you get stereotyped or people just laugh it off or, they try to make it into something else and it's not. So, and, people that do make those comments, they're not there. They weren't there. So it's easy for them to make an excuse for it.
Yeah, like I said, it's fun and games until you see one, And I would imagine that moment when it turned its head and its body and was watching, that's when it got real really quick as you were going by. You're like, holy crap, it's moving.
No, yeah, because again, it's the roads are so windy. I mean, because they're mountain roads and they're paved, but you're kind of taking them slow. It's not like you're going 45 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. It's just, you might be doing like 20 going around the curve, and you do have time to look out the window, and it's like, okay, something's registering, but it's not making sense in your mind. Seeing a creature that's I have never seen before. I don't know. I thought, again, maybe a science experiment, something got loose, or somebody's pet gorilla baby got loose. And I remember when I heard about the white Sasquatch, and I was Googling that, like pet monkey, pet gorilla, and nothing was coming up, nothing. And then it was like, okay, let me try Sasquatch. And there was like a little clip of somebody that they filmed this white Sasquatch and like the Pocono Mountains. And I was just wondering if that was, this thing as it got older, your mind just kind of goes to different places. But
yeah, that's definitely understandable. It sounds like it's stuck with you ever since you saw it. What do you think Sasquatch is? What's your opinion, Mike?
I believe, again, from just the research and following it, I believe it is some primate. I believe something that they're very few. It's a limited species, that, I guess kind of isolates itself in certain areas that people don't go through. You hear hunters coming across these territories that, they hear stuff and they actually see stuff, but, rather than tell other people, but I believe it's some type of species that kind of branched off into something else. But yeah, that's pretty much my thought. And again, researchers talk about there's a good food resource. I mean, there's water, there's deer, there's berries, nuts, whatever that could really keep a colony going.
Yeah, it's true. I think there's a mentality on the East Coast and down south in particular where people don't talk about it. I think there's more that goes on the East Coast and down south than there actually is in the Pacific Northwest, which is very strange because a lot of times I hear this a lot from a lot of people, especially on the East Coast and down south. They will say, if these things are real, if they do exist, I always thought that they were in the Pacific Northwest, not down here or on the East Coast. And that can be farther from the truth. But there's this mentality where people don't want to talk about it.
Right. And I believe too. And, someone had mentioned, and I never really made the connection, was the Appalachian Trail. It's just like a lot of people take that, but it goes through a lot of the states, and a lot of people have talked about encounters like through the Appalachian Trail. And I'm sure if it's a pathway, if it's, easier access, and, whether cold weather sets in and they move, they migrate. I don't know, but it just, like I said, I believe it is some type of species. It's very, very elusive. People talk about, well, how come they haven't found the body? How come there, isn't evidence? And I believe there is. I just don't think that a lot of the information is made public. I just don't believe that, because I think it would terrorize people. Because I think a lot of people only want to hear certain things, and rather than set people off and go on this like witch hunt, I think it's just best to like leave them be and just kind of let it go. So I guess
yeah, I think that's the case in a lot of things. I forget, my voice mic still kind of coming in and out, but I think that's the case in a lot of things. People they live their simple life. They work their 8 to 10 hours a day. They sit in traffic, come home, watch TV. And then, if you came out and said, Sasquatch is real, aliens are real, you go down the list, I think it would upset the public. I really do.
Definitely. And I think I had mentioned this yesterday, not to get into the religious piece, but, you're talking about something that in the Bible, it's black and white. Here it is, it's written, but there's a lot of gray. And people don't want to look at the gray, and they're uncomfortable with the gray, and everything is gray. Everything is gray. So it's trying to, I guess, not discredit people with their belief, but there's more. There's more than just what you're told.
So true. So true.
Yeah, believing in more.
Yeah. Well, seeing is definitely believing, and
oh, yeah.
It's a cool encounter. I think a lot of people would want that type of encounter. They don't want it throwing rocks at their house or banging on the house or trying to get in the house or out hunting and having one charge you or growl at you. Or I think your encounter is the one probably most people would want, seeing a young one in a car as you're passing by. I think that's the encounter.
Yeah, I think too. It's like, the more I thought about it, it was just like, yeah, it was kind of cute. This thing, it was like sitting on the side. It was cute. But, as time goes on, it's like you hear certain things about them being aggressive, and I'm sure they just want to be left alone. But it's, it was just, I would like to see others. I would like to see more. Yeah, maybe travel out there and take a look around,
Yeah, well, if you do, hit me up and come on out,
definitely.
And I'll take you to some areas. We'll hang out, and but I appreciate I appreciate you being here. Tell us about your encounter. What were you guys out doing, and just kind of walk us into what happened.
So we were fresh out of high school. We just graduated like a month before, and my cousin and I decided to take a couple-day trip down a river in Ohio. And we were in our kayaks, but we were towing a canoe behind us too, with all of our supplies in it and stuff. We were coming down the river, and it had a pretty stiff current to it. And I was and he told me to jump out, leave the canoe to the shore. But I ended up getting swept downstream and carried, I don't know, like a mile or so away. And I had to swim back and whatnot. But it was chest deep on me. I'm only 5'8", so like I said, it carried me downstream. I swam back, and then we had to carry the canoe, our kayaks, uphill. And where we were at, there was nobody around us. We set up camp, and we, I'm not gonna lie, we were kind of loud that night. It was us being, 18 years old and invincible and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because like I said, we were fresh out of high school, when we just thought we'd conquer the world. And so I decided, in all my 18-year-old wisdom, it would be a good idea to let out a few tree knocks to just, I don't know, see what was out there, which I kind of regretted later. So we didn't really get to bed till about, I want to say, 2 a.m. And our phones were dead. We didn't have service. I woke up. I don't really wake up. It was like a twilight zone. I kept seeing the numbers 4:36 a.m. flashing in my head, and I heard this. I don't know what it was. It crossed the river in 3 steps. I heard swish, 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 and a loud thud on the shore, and then it all went silent. Crickets stopped chirping, and all the creatures of the night stopped doing whatever they do. And I started to doze back off, and then I hear this loud, like gut-wrenching growl outside the tent. And what moonlight we had, I saw this huge black shadow. And I was like, okay, it's actually somebody messing with us. And then it let out the growl again right next to me. And there's just this sense of fear, like, okay, I'm probably gonna die. Where it says I'm not happy we're here. And I remember, because I'm not exactly on the greatest terms with God, but that night I made my peace with him. I was like, okay, if you're going to take me, do it now. I'm sorry for everything I've done. Please forgive me for my sins. I was, like I said, I was scared I was going to die. And I tried waking my cousin up so we can get the hell out of there. And he just wouldn't wake up. And then after that, it went silent. He found me in the corner of the tent, shaking, literally rocking back and forth, like a person in a mental hospital does, who's not right in the head. I was so shaken up over it. I tried explaining it to him. He just thought, "Oh, you just had a nightmare. You're imagining things." And I tried telling people about it, and they just thought I was crazy. So I stopped talking about it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what it was, but it scared the living hell out of me. Like the next day, I woke up, I was puking everywhere. I didn't want to leave the tent. I didn't want to leave the tent at all. And when he finally coaxed me out of the tent, it was like a 1 in the afternoon the next day. He said I needed to get out here and look at all this. Look at this. All of our belongings that we left out that night were thrown everywhere. The canoe we had was in a tree. I don't know how it got there or anything. This canoe it's not light. It took 2 of us, all of our strength to get this thing up the hill. And when we took it fishing, it took 3 of us just to get it in the truck. It's heavy. And my uncle built it, and
yeah, so it makes no sense. It'd be up. How far up in a tree was it?
Honestly, I don't even remember. I know he had to climb, and I had to catch it with my face. But I remember he called his dad. Supposedly he did, and then when we finally got back, his dad was there waiting on us because we were like way behind schedule, and he saw the canoe, and he literally started screaming at us because he thought we broke it, and we did. And I tried to explain it to him. He just didn't want to hear it. And yeah, I don't, to this day, I don't talk to my other side of the family. They all think I'm nuts.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, it's very real when you're sitting in a tent and you hear something come across the river, start growling at you. And I wanted to ask you, when you're in the tent, did you see an outline, or was it just a huge dark shadow?
It was just a huge dark shadow. I didn't see anything else. There wasn't a whole lot of moonlight that night. I mean, we were in some pretty thick tree cover too, and what moonlight we had, I just saw this shadow moving outside of the tent. And I'm kind of getting shaken up to just stop thinking about it now.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I went. I think I told you in the emails I had another experience when we were at Salt Fork. So, my mom's side of the family, my other cousin and I went down to Salt Fork, and we were down there the day before New Year's. It was, how old was it? It was like -10 that day, I believe, with the wind chill. And we just thought it was a bright idea to go hiking, which turned out to be not to be the greatest idea. So we went to Josek's cave, and we were just browsing around. So I've never been there before, and he hasn't either. And we got lost the way there. This place isn't exactly the easiest to find, especially when you haven't been there. We get out, everything's fine and we go, above and beyond what they recommend us to do. We actually went inside the cave. It was more of an overhang than it was anything. It was pretty cool and all. But then he decided we were going to climb to the top of it. And that's when that same sense of fear I came back from the previous canoeing trip. And he literally stopped dead in his tracks. He said, "Do you smell that?" And I couldn't smell anything. My nose was stuffed up and whatnot. Like I said, that same sense of fear came over me. And I didn't even think about it. I was like, we gotta go. We gotta go. And we literally ran down the hill. It was like the devil himself was right on our tail. And we just booked it. That was the fastest I ever ran. I ended up getting hurt, and I spent like 2 days in the hospital because I had some torn tendons in my legs. So I ended up ripping a couple, like I said, some tendons in my leg and whatnot.
Oh wow, from running?
Yeah, I fell down the hill too. But and when I fell, I kind of just got back up. I was like, I gotta get the hell out of here. It took everything we could to get that truck moving. So we didn't want to start at first. When we finally got it started, we floored it, and he said he looked back in the rearview mirrors, and he saw something. And I asked him what it was. There was no way I was looking. I didn't want to see this thing. I don't want to see this thing, because if it's anything like everybody says it is, I don't want nothing to do with it. I just want to keep my distance.
What did your cousin say he saw?
He said it was like this big, it was almost like a monkey, but it was like very human-like, he said. But yet again, at the same time, I don't know, because I didn't see it myself.
Yeah, no, I understand. Your first encounter is kind of a good warning for a lot of people, and I say it to a lot of these Bigfoot researchers and experts and whatever else title they give themselves. But if you're gonna go out there and like you guys are banging on trees, obviously you guys are just messing around. And I say this to a lot of guys: what are you gonna do if one comes in and it's pissed? You're really at its mercy. I mean, a guy's not gonna stand outside of your tent and growl. A bear's not gonna pick up your canoe and throw it up in a tree. And so what else could it be? You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, he wants to go back down there this I think next weekend and look for whatever it was. I told him the only way I'm going down there is if I have a 44 or something bigger. I mean, what's a little 9mm going to do to something this big?
Yeah, you're right.
It's just not as bad.
Did it take anything? And when it went through all your stuff, did you guys notice anything missing?
All of our food was gone. We had fish we caught earlier that night, the day before, upstream, and I cleaned it that night, and all of it was gone. I was like, okay, there goes our breakfast for the next 2 days.
Have you found that growl online? Have you been able to find something that matches it?
Honestly, I have not. I also really haven't looked either, so that doesn't really help.
No, I understand. Yeah, no, it's terrifying, man. Especially when it's more of the unknown. I think you probably ran into one of these things. It probably came in and checked you guys out. You know what else goes clump, 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 or slosh, slosh, slosh across the river? Usually you can tell right away if it's something on 2 legs or 4 legs. You know what I mean?
I mean, if it was a deer, I would have heard it coming from across the river because they're docile, gentle creatures, and they're going to stay away from humans as much as they possibly can. I mean, who just really wants to? What kind of animal just wants to come in and mess with a bunch of 18-year-old kids who, like I said, who feel like they conquered the world? I mean, they're going to stay away.
A Sasquatch does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you hear about this, I mean, You can read historical accounts, of these things, and, people have had on the show. It's very similar type behavior. They come in, they're campsite robbers, man. They'll come take your stuff, and I wonder why it was growling at you, though. Maybe it knew you were awake.
Probably. I mean, it was that. I mean, it's like you said. We probably pissed it off or whatever. So we were there. It was just one of the facts. I think we were in his territory. It was just more angry the fact that we were there, and we probably shouldn't have been.
Yeah, please be careful if you go back there. If it's going to come in and growl at you and take your stuff, throw your canoe up in a tree, it's going to have no qualms about getting its hands on you. You know what I mean? Yeah,
and like I said, I'm not the biggest person ever, a biggest person. So if they're as big as everyone says they are, this thing would have no problem, literally have no problem just tearing me limb from limb. I wouldn't stand a chance. I mean, I'm also not gonna fight it because it's fight or flight. I'm running. I'm gonna try to at least. I've encountered coyotes in the woods. Just other stuff I can't really explain either. I don't really want to know. And there's been a couple of other times too, where my buddy and I have been fishing and we've had stuff thrown at us, but we just kind of chalk that off as kids. But other than that, I won't go back in the woods without a gun, even if it's just some metro park by my house. I'm not taking the chance.
Yeah, I think in this situation, let's assume it's a Sasquatch. They're smart in the sense that, to kill you guys is probably more energy than it really wanted to exert. It was probably growling to make sure you didn't get out of that tent. And in the meantime, it's going to take your stuff. And you hear a lot of reports like this, man. And I think, and don't take what I just said as they won't come after you, because they will.
I can only imagine from the podcasts I've heard on your show that some people have fed them or left food out for them, or just animals in general. I've talked about this to people at work, people I work with. It's just like when you leave food out for other animals, they're going to expect it, and when you don't leave it out, they're going to get mad.
Yeah, it's true.
But, I have one more. I don't really know if you would consider it an experience or whatnot. But last summer on my 24th birthday, my buddy and I were fishing up at I think it was Pocono Reservoir. He left to go get firewood from the bed of the truck, and I just got this feeling like I was being watched, because where we were at isn't exactly the easiest place to get to. You can't really get to it without 4-wheel drive. I was out on the end of the little walkway by myself, and there's just trees all around you. And I just had this sense I was being watched the whole time. I don't know if it was people or if it was coyotes, deer, bears, whatever. I don't know. It wasn't really a fear. It was just one of someone's out there, someone's watching you. And he came back. I told him about it, and then I worked up the courage to go look, and there was nothing there. There wasn't even signs of tree branches breaking, deer, or anything. But like I said, I don't know what it was.
No, I hear you. And usually if you do get that feeling like you're being watched, you're probably being watched. But if you and your cousin decide to go back into that area, not necessarily just having a gun, but just be careful. You know what I mean? Just be really, really careful, especially if it has the nuts to come up and growl at you, take your stuff, throw your canoe in the tree. I mean, that right there tells you this isn't something to be played. This isn't a toy to be played with. it will snap you in half.
Yeah.
And you just got to be careful, when you're out there. And then, like I said, man, it's all fun and games until you run into one. I tell people that all the time who don't believe. You can laugh and snicker. I'm not saying you laughed or snickered, Jared, but I'm like, you can laugh and snicker all you want, but I guarantee you when you run into one, you're going to be in the fetal position. You will be afraid, I promise you.
I mean, it's like the one guy I work with from Pennsylvania, and he said that, they had bear there. In Ohio, we really don't have them. We get the occasional sighting, but they're elusive, very, very elusive. And he said, he's telling me, he sees one, he's he's gonna run. I was like, okay, if you run, it's food. And so I'm assuming it's the same thing with Sasquatch. If we run, we're their food.
Yeah, I think with most creatures, I think if you take off running, they're going to chase. And I think a lot of them enjoy it. I think a cougar would enjoy you running away from it. It probably will give chase. But it's a fascinating account, man. Please be careful again. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, next up, I want to welcome Roman to the show. Roman, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate you being here.
No problem. Glad to share.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to have you on. If you would you kind of start, this is a very odd night, I think, for anyone hearing this. It's a very strange night that you had. Scary night, too, as well. If you would you kind of start from the beginning, tell us what you were out doing, and walk us into what happened?
Sure. Well, it's last summer, August long weekend up here. We have BC Day long weekend, August 2nd, usually the first weekend of August every year. And my sister and nephew, who I don't get to see too much of down here, they live a little, not too far away, but just everybody's lives, just busy. So she invited me out to join them with their friends camping up at a lake called Goose Lake, which is an area I'm not super familiar with. It's just south of Merritt and north of Princeton. So they invited me out, and I was like, sure. And I had said that I would meet them up there. So my sister, she'd given me some directions, basically up a couple main highways and then the main turnoff up this FSR road, Forestry Road. I think it's called Pike Road. And then one more turn she gave me directions with. I can't remember how that was or what that looked like. And that was kind of about it. Well, it turns out it took a long time to get set up. I decided to bring my little utility trailer and throw the quad on because it's just for fun. If anybody wanted to ride, or my nephew's a young boy, so he enjoys riding, so I'll bring the trailer and quad. And then if we wanted to get some firewood, we'd cut some firewood and that sort of thing. So it's just easier to haul around with the trailer. So I think I just replaced the turbo on my truck around that time, and so I was running a bit behind. I told her I'd see her up there, and yeah. So as usual, it takes forever to get set up and get going. It's always things you got to get together for a little trip to the interior, and I ended up getting up to Merritt around 11:30 at night, and I filled up. Sometimes you just never know what you're up against and how much fuel you need. I like to be prepared. So I filled up in Merritt, went up the Coquihalla Connector, another main highway in BC, and took up my first turnoff south on 5A towards Princeton. I had a hard time trying to navigate. Well, it was just I didn't know where the turnoff was, so I was driving kind of cautious, and I hadn't been on that road before, so I was keeping an eye out for it, and I didn't know how far it was. So it turned out it ended up being about 30 kilometers south. I think about 30 kilometers south of that turnoff, and so I finally found it, and And then I stopped and, okay, what's my next step here? My next turn off, I think it was the sign I was looking for that said Goose Lake. So I just started to go and thought I'll find it. I usually find places pretty easily and, usually in the bush. But so I just took my first right, and I went down into some camp and realized, okay, this isn't it. Turned around and then got back on the main dirt road and headed up in altitude. And the roads just started branching off, in one or two different directions. I hit one intersection where there's three roads into one. And I was like, well, I don't see a sign. I'll try this road. So I went up this road. I went left and went up a bit. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to pull the quad off and I can cover a lot more ground faster. Dirt road's bumpy, truck and trailer. It's a little bit, it's just hard on the equipment. So, and it was summer. It was fairly warm. And so I pulled off onto kind of a spur road off one of the main roads, kind of hide my truck a bit, right? Because it's, you just never know. Sometimes people steal spare tires and stuff like that. So I kind of stashed my truck and pulled off the quad and started riding. By now it's about midnight, 12:30, I would bet, somewhere around there. And I started riding and I just kept hitting all these other intersections and no signage and been a little bit frustrated and kind of cursing my sister. So I started climbing up an elevation and I'm like, this is weird. Like, I can't find any sign or anything. So I went up an elevation and I decided, I'll go back down an elevation. And I did. And I got to this sort of main road, I thought main FSR road, and I continued on. This started feeling strange with that night. I ran into a cow sleeping on the road that I couldn't even see until I almost ran over it. And I chased that around for a while until he darted off in the bush. I just thought that was a really strange event right there. Anyways, so I smelled, I was traveling along and I felt like I thought I was kind of on the right track, and I smelled like a strong, well, to put it bluntly, shit, like a real strong but extremely powerful, but with like kind of like a dog, but mixed with like a skunky smell, like a real potent smell. I thought, wow, there's something around me here right now. I know it. And because it was that fresh, like, or that strong, right? And it kind of dissipated, and I kept going, and I was kind of feeling uneasy at this time, and just feeling like, man, this is a strange night so far. And it dissipated a bit, and I got on my quad, I got a 6-inch rigid light bar, and it puts out a lot of light, like, and it makes riding at night with the quad a lot of fun, right? And, so you can see quite a distance, and so I'm riding along, and I is kind of a straightaway, and the road's undulating, and I smelled the smell again, and I had seen this mass gray, it looked like long hair mass, simply step aside to the left. It would be my left traveling. And he just stepped aside, like kind of like someone just sidestepping in behind a tree. And I was like, what was that? And I had to go by it, and I had to make a decision quick. Do I turn around? And when you turn around on a quad, like my quad, you gotta slow down, push one button, pull the lever. It's an ordeal to turn it around, and it would have taken me a few seconds, like, to slow down, and I didn't want to. So I just punched it, and I didn't even look back, and I just kept going, right? And I was on the right track. I did find the lake, and got to the lake, and it's amazing. It was incredible that I found this lake. I'll tell you why later, but so I told everyone, I said, I think I just seen Bigfoot or something, and we all kind of chuckled and laughed, and in my mind it's like, did I see that? And I did. So kind of settled in, and for about 20 minutes, and I think it was about 2 a.m. at this point. I said, I got to go get my truck because it's a pretty valuable truck, and I just didn't want to leave it out there. And at the same time, I was kind of curious about this. Yeah, just curious, I guess, is the best word. So everybody was saying, no, just stay here, you'll be fine. Go look for it in the morning. And but I was kind of excited, scared, intrigued all at the same time. And so I booted it back, and I couldn't find my way back to my truck. And I thought that was really strange too. And, I felt just all turned around, and every time I felt like, okay, I got this road, I'll go so far. I know that I turn to the left here or right there, and I'm pretty good with directions in the bush. I've hunted, for several years, and I think I'm not too bad with my sense of direction, right? And not the best always, but that night I was turning around all over the place. Like I was just completely like, what is going on here? Like, this is really strange. I could be wrong. Like, it could be just the way I just, hadn't been in that situation before. I'm so accustomed to hunting in our sort of region, and maybe, it was just one of those nights, right? So I got lost. I couldn't find my truck for an hour or so, an hour and a half maybe. But I did find it, and pretty freaked out. And again, I turned around and I thought, okay, get back down the road, hang my left here, and get going. And I did that, and I got lost again. And I was really thinking, this is really strange. Like, this is off. Like, what's going on here? And so I'm cruising along, and this road, a lot of times on logging roads, you end up on a spur road, then it gets narrower and narrower, and then okay, well, this road's going to probably fizzle out to nothing, right? It's kind of one of those roads, and I came upon, looked like a farmhouse, and this light above the farmhouse, and from a distance, I thought, okay, they got a farm, and maybe like it's a barn with a big, like barn light or something. But this thing was huge, and I thought, okay, are they some crew filming a movie out here or something, is what I was thinking. And it was similar to one of those lights. It was large, very large when I came up on it. And it was above the house and behind the house. And the best way I can describe the way this light was like a set light from a movie set. But I couldn't see one movement of anyone. It was pretty late, so, understandably, maybe there's no one out, but this light was on, and and it was illuminating this house in a way that, like like it was glowing, kind of like the wall, like the light was going through the wall, so to speak. Like very, very hard to describe, but very strange. And I came upon the gate, and I just sat there for a minute, idling, looking at this and thinking, someone's going to come out. It's got to be a movie set, and then maybe they can help me with my directions back. And couldn't see a single movement, and all I could think was, this is very, very strange, right? And I couldn't see a pole. I was looking for a pole or something that this light was sitting on. I couldn't see it, and this is dark, right? And this light was bright, so maybe it's just blinding me and I couldn't see it. That was affecting my ability to see this, like, pole or whatever it's sitting on, right? And so yeah, I just backed up, and with the trailer, it's so hard to turn around, so I was just trying to stay out of the ditch and turn around and just slowly went my way. And this, like, I got to tell you, this whole time, like, seeing what I've seen, this big mass, it was tall. Like, it is at least 12 feet. I mean, I'm in construction demolition industry, and I got an idea of, like what 12 feet is, what 10 feet is, and this thing was like 12 feet and wide, like 4 feet across, for sure. And just thinking, this is one strange night, man. Like what's next here, right? And I was a bit afraid. And usually, anytime I go in the bush, just for protection, I usually have a shotgun in the back or with me. And that night I didn't have it, and I was kicking myself the whole time, thinking, just feeling a little extra vulnerable, right? And so I just traveled along a bit, kind of found the main road, and was gonna kind of just sort of doze off. I was hoping to, and I just couldn't, and I just sort of moved slow until the light started coming out about 4:35 in the morning. And I waited, and the whole time I just felt like I was being watched. Like after all that, it could be easily have been fear, just simple fear in my mind, just going off, right? Which is very, very likely. And even when you're driving along, you're going slow. You got your window kind of open. You can still hear certain sounds, eh? And I know there's animals, and they're traveling around at night and doing their thing. Deer often are out at night, and I could hear sounds around me, and chalk it up as just regular animals, but it just fueled that fear, I suppose. And once the light came out, I almost instantly seen like this turn off of the main road that I needed, and I knew exactly where I was, and it was like it was over. And I got on that road, and I got back to the camp, the Goose Lake. And it was a series of roads that were just like all over the place. And I just like, thinking back to the night before, like, how the hell did I find this place? Like, I was like, there's a lot of roads. And that morning, I'd been up now for some time, and my nephew got up, and we kind of went for a few little walks around the camp. And I don't know if there's any other camps around or farms or anything around that area, but we were walking around and just listening, and kind of pretending we were like hunting and stuff like that. He's a young boy, we're just out camping. So I could swear, and I was asking him if he could hear it too, and he could hear like voices out in the distance, and but you couldn't make out anything, and I don't think we really deciphered anything out of that, but I don't know if he actually heard what I was hearing. But yeah, I was hearing some like low chatter, and I've heard that before hunting in the region we hunted, in the past, and you chalk it up as hunters, right? But since that night, I've been like watching and listening and reading a lot of just trying to gather information about this sort of phenomenon, and I wasn't sure. I'm sure I was sure about what I seen, but I wasn't sure as to what it could have been, and I never that time heard of any sightings with being a gray Sasquatch or Bigfoot. And my sister sent me a link to a paper that I haven't spoke with her yet. I wanted to try to get the link to this paper and pass that on to you too as well. But in that, it led me to a sighting where there's some gray sightings of a gray Sasquatch in that region in the last 10 years. And as soon as I had read that, I knew right there, it's like, yeah, that's what I've seen. There's no question about it in my mind. I really believe that to be true, right? And that whole evening being a strange evening, yeah, I could chalk it up to being just, in a different range and some fear playing on my mind. But I know that there was an off feeling that just really made me confused that night, and it was more powerful than I had experienced in ever that I can recall, right? when you're young and you're camping and you kind of, well, you tell camp stories or stuff like that. And even as adults, we do that sometimes when we're sitting around the campfire and we get into stories and we spook ourselves, right? That's one thing, but this was completely different. Like it was like another level that I it seriously affected me that night. And I tell people, and I talk about it lightly, and I know people look at me funny, and so I slow down on who I tell about this.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I don't really care what people think, but it's funny. I shared about it in passing with a guy at work, and another fellow came up to me and shared his experience with me just like a week ago, and I was surprised to hear what he had to say. And he didn't want to talk about it in front of everyone, but he spoke about it with me, you start. Since I started to like read and listen and watch some of these shows with sightings, things start coming together, and I start remembering different sounds or experiences that I've experienced out in the bush hunting. Like since that event, like I was hunting with my cousin this past fall, and I've never had a problem walking in the bush for hours and like on my own, no problem, not even, and heard wolves in our area like many times and seen them, and not afraid at all. Come across moose, no fear at all, like very little anyway. And this year I had a hard time even getting out of my truck like since that, and definitely not without my shotgun. I might walk a kilometer and that's it. I got to turn around, and I haven't really shared that with my cousin yet, but
well, I appreciate you sharing it here. I wanted to ask you, the creature that you saw, so it was upright, moving from tree to tree?
He's on the side of the road, and when I came up on it, like I was traveling sort of erratic to keep my RPMs up, so I was going slow, fast to keep my RPMs up to have a lot of power in case I needed to like really hit it. So, and I was kind of chattering to myself and like just making noise just to speak anything in case something was around, and like a bear or another animal or cougar that might want to you know what I mean. And when I came upon this, like it was on the left, and all I could see was this tall mass. I couldn't see what it was doing, but it moved. It sidestepped in sort of one just sweep, and that's all I seen. Like I couldn't see if it was looking at me or if it was. I can't honestly say if it was facing me. If it was, then he had hair on his front, but the hair was somewhat long, like longer and grayish black, like not entirely gray, and it moved behind the tree. And
interesting. Yeah.
And it was large. There's no question about it. I know how shadows play with trees when you got a big LED bar and you're driving, on twisty roads. I know what this was. It was a gray mass, and I couldn't tell what it was doing. If it was walking across the road, or if it was just standing there, or if it was walking away from me, or like, who knows, right? I kind of feel like maybe it knew I was coming and just got out of my way. I think. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, it was wide and tall. It was huge. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, because I think you and I both know that's probably a Sasquatch you saw. And there's a lot of reports of gray ones. I don't know why most people don't know that, but there is actually a lot of reports of gray ones, especially in our area. Actually, you'll find it everywhere, really. In Texas, you'll find it. On the East Coast, you'll find reports of gray ones. And some of these Bigfoot researchers and experts and whatever else title they give themselves will say, well, it's an older one. I don't buy that. I think that they come in different colors. I think that they come in gray. I wanted to ask you about the light, though. What was it about the light that you didn't think, well, it's just a farm light? I mean, what was it about it that really made you stop?
It was large. It was like very similar to they film a lot of movies up here in Vancouver, and you see these big light sets. It was a large light set like that, and it's an odd light that they use. They filter it with a screen or something, and it was a large light. And it's hard to really determine how big it was in diameter. It had to have been at least 6 feet across. It was a big ball of light, kind of like a round light, I guess.
Oh, I gotcha.
It was like a set light, right? But big and high above the house and behind it, off on one side of it. On the left would be my left side, right? And my first thought was they're filming a movie. They're filming a movie up here, and maybe they were, and they're done with the set, but the light was on, and maybe they just left the light on. I don't know. But I couldn't see any like trailers or like the usual get up you see on a movie set, like trailers and tents and like that sort of stuff with food shacks and all that.
So it was more like an orb. Is that what you're saying?
It was. I couldn't tell you honestly. I couldn't say I don't feel like it might have been, but it was round. I couldn't tell if it was a ball, but it was round. There's no question about it. I almost thought for a quick second it was the moon, but that obviously wasn't. And but it was big, and it was behind the house slightly, and the way it illuminated the walls was uncanny, and it was like the walls are glowing like a dull glow from the inside out. It was very strange.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So it wasn't a normal light, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't.
No, definitely not. And not even close to a normal like farmhouse light or barn like that you would see. It was big. It was like large. But that was my thought. It illuminated like a large part of that area, like coming up on it, right? I could see the light when I came up this road. The light out, you could see a distance. There's like it was bright. So I couldn't see a pole, sitting on a pole or a zoom boom, or like if it was a movie set, I couldn't see any of that.
What color was it? Did it have a color?
It was very very white light, like a very white light, whiter than white, very white.
Interesting.
Green white.
Almost makes you wonder if it was like a UFO or something, you know what I mean? Or like an orb, or because you wouldn't think a light, like a normal light would really catch your attention. I think we've all seen farmhouse lights. We've seen big lights out on farms, and they don't really draw your attention, but for some reason this drew your attention.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like I said, I thought it was a movie set, and if it was, like, man, this is a really odd place to have a movie set. Like, I've never really seen one in the bush before, but I'm sure that it's happening all the time. But again, like, I've seen no trailers, no, like, none of that stuff. No, I didn't see anybody moving around, and I was looking for that, and I just thought someone would come to the gate, and that's what I was hoping to help me with directions, and because I sat there for a few minutes, right, idling, and I was like, man, this is freaking weird. And I didn't even think to try and take a picture. I should have. It didn't even cross my mind. But yeah, it was certainly not a barn light, a regular farmhouse light. I've been, traveling around in the interior for my whole life, and lights like that, and they're nothing like it at all. It was big, and it was above the house. Well above the house, and
yeah, interesting. It's very interesting.
But just sort of above and off to the side, and it's hard to say what it was. And it stayed there until I turned around and I was gone, and it was still there. When I got out of the distance, out from the, away from it, I guess. So,
let me ask you, and I really appreciate you sharing your encounter. I'm fascinated by it, especially the feeling you had of being watched and the smell and then seeing the thing. And the light, too, is concerning. There's a lot of people that see these lights. I've had people who I've talked to on the phone that have seen lights the size of cars just kind of floating out in the forest. And it's very odd to see them. And I've seen orbs, too. They're very odd to look at because it's a weird, like you described, it's a very odd light. It's not like, like on a movie set when they have a light, it's blinding. I've been on, with these TV guys and stuff and sat in front of it, and you can barely see the camera because the light's so blinding. But when you see the orbs, it's different. It's a very soft light. It's almost like a light that's being radiated, not like a blind, like a flashlight or something like that.
Yeah, you could look at this light easy.
Yeah. Very soft light. And the way you talk about it radiating around the home, that's kind of what the orb that I saw up in Yakult, and I filmed it. It's very similar. You can see it kind of radiating the light around trees and everything else that's around. I wanted to ask you, though, what do you think Sasquatch is, Roman? What's your honest opinion?
Well, like before seeing this last summer and, not really having sort of researched a lot, I chalked it up as probably like an animal in the bush that's just, that's, unseen, that's pretty clever. And, in our area up here in Harrison, there's been like Bigfoot sightings for years and years. And, there's some camps called Bigfoot campgrounds. It's been talked about for many years. So I always just felt maybe he was just an animal, but after, reading a lot more and, just gathering more information, I'm beginning to learn that there's something there. And, I've learned about this infrasound, and I kind of felt like maybe that's just fear, acting in people, right? And, but that night I was like, it was different. It was different. I was lost, confused. I felt like there was something playing with me, like there's an effect there, right? So there, I now today I would say I strongly feel like there's more, definitely more than just an animal, because that's about the best I can answer that. There's more than just an animal, because, and I'm sure they are part animal, obviously, but something else too. Yeah, they'd have to be, like, why? Yeah, I don't know. There's just I wanted to say, like, why haven't we got one? But there have been people that have gotten them, and I just don't know what's going on out there. But they're there. I no doubt about it. Like, I truly believe they're there. It's impossible with the amount of sightings that have been going on for hundreds of years. One of the first explorers out here in the west, David Thompson, he's had multiple sightings. He's I guess he's a navigator, I suppose, for Hudson Bay Company, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's an explorer, right? And he's got written accounts, and they go back forever. And there's no question about it in my mind. But that's what they are. I haven't a clue, other than I would have said purely an animal that's just smart and, hiding. And, there's got to be more, because they've got to be smart. Some people say, well, why haven't you shown me bones or anything? But I walked a lot in the bush the last several years hunting, and it's pretty rare I come across bones, right? Like, well, bones here and there of an animal, and they would be scattered around, and a lot of times you can't make out what animal they were. Usually they're deer, but I've come across antlers, shed. I haven't come across any bare bones, So
yeah, I agree with you on that.
There.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I tend to agree with you on that, and that's my biggest argument. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. Roman. I can argue that point the same as you because, you and I are basically in the same environments. You're just north of me, but realistically, we live in the same environment. And you're right. You won't come across because the forest eats it up. I mean, I could shoot a deer, leave it in 2 weeks, it won't be there. I promise you. And it's just because the forest takes care of it. But then, how do you answer in these reports in Arizona or in New Mexico, or do they have that same environment where it would just eat it up? I don't know. But I tend to agree with you that there seems to be something more going on here than just a wild animal. I tend to agree with you on that.
Yeah. Like the next night when we camped there that night. Well, I didn't really camp. I was out all night driving around. But the next day we went to another lake, maybe 80 kilometers away. And that night we rented a cabin on a lake, Paradise Lake, and we're joking and laughing about making fun of what I'd seen. And that night we heard some wolves howling, but it started out with sounded like coyotes and then wolves, and then it almost sounded like humans were making wolf sounds. And we were like, that is strange. My sister didn't think it strange so much because she's not really familiar with being so much out in the bush. But to me, I was like, that is odd. Maybe there's some other people just in a nearby cabin making the same sounds, but these sounds were changing. And my cousin, he's been surrounded by wolves, and he swears that he's heard them mimic and make gruff sounds, but he couldn't see them. And I think that there was something else out there sometimes with us. You hear sounds that are off. Yeah, I don't know. They're just so many different things come together more. And maybe I'm just hypersensitive and a little bit afraid, but I could go on about sounds, like different sounds that I've heard in the bush in our area that just don't make sense. Like the low chatters to many owls, but they don't sound like owls. Anyways.
You definitely, yeah, no, I hear you. And you definitely can hear them. They do mimic a lot. And I think that you definitely have them in your area. I mean, like I said, I know you're in Canada and I'm in the United States, but realistically, we're in the same area. You take the border aside, we're in the same area, and you do hear them out there. I think it's interesting that the creature was kind of stepped off to the side as you were riding by. Sometimes you don't get that reaction from them, especially if you're on a four-wheeler or a motorcycle or a dirt bike. Those noises tend to piss them off. For you to have the smell and the feeling of being watched. I think you were being watched that night. The part that I'm sure that bothers you to this day is that being confused and turned around. And, for a guy that's been out in the bush a lot, you can go and say, well, he got turned around. Generally, those guys don't get turned around 2-3 times a night in the same area when they've already been to an area. You know what I mean? So I would imagine that would bother you, the sense of feeling lost. You know what I mean?
That's exactly why I know there's something more than just being turned around. That's how I really feel that too, right? I just say something about, gray, seeing something gray. Like my family's from a small town. I was born in Kamloops, and just outside of Kamloops, there's a small town out there. And when I was 14, I remember we were sitting around someone's place one night in the summer, and I was 14. There's some people that came over. They were maybe 4 years older than me, and they'd been out dirt biking that day. And this fellow was telling us a story that they were dirt biking with their friends, and this guy had his girlfriend with them too. And they had seen something gray running up the hill, and he said that his girlfriend froze, and he had to jump off his bike and push her to get going. And it's funny how that comes back to you after, you kind of you see what you see, and then you hear that there's actually gray Bigfoot out there, and then it's like, hey, I remember that story, and this guy was genuinely pretty freaked out that day. And it's like, hey, there's something there, right? So,
yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of things, I think after you have an encounter, you look back like you have, being a hunter, you look back at a lot of things and go, that was odd. Like hearing people talking or hearing, what sounds like owls and deep down it's not owls. Or you hear different animals, you sound like the animals, but there's something a little different about it. Like it doesn't quite add up to what you've seen before, Be safe while you're out there. You'll have to let me know if you go back out there. Let me know if anything else happens, will you?
Yeah, well, yeah. My experience certainly isn't very, very traumatic, compared to some of the experiences I hear with people. And, thank goodness, but I really feel for people that have had very traumatic experiences. I can't imagine what that would be like. Right? Like you just don't know. And I'm glad that, I've listened to you, Joey, that you're out there and, just helping. Yeah, I think it helps people to have a venue to talk about, and it's to talk about that stuff, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And whether it's traumatic or not, it's kind of irrelevant. We just need more people to come forward and see and say what they've seen. And it's very similar to what I could pull you many reports from Texas, and they sound just like your report. I could pull you reports from Pennsylvania, and they sound very similar to your report. So I think it's important for everyone to come forward and just talk about what they saw without feeling like they're going to be interrogated. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You bet.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, well, thanks for listening. Yeah.
Thanks again, Roman. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Until next time, everyone.